I spent 20 grand. Yes, 20,000 actual pounds sterling, not Monopoly money. On a family vacation to Hawaii. You know, the whole let's make memories before dad dies of stress kind of thing. 3 months of planning, spreadsheets color-coded, like I was arranging the Normandy invasion. And what happens at the airport? My darling son looks me square in the face and says, I forgot to buy you a ticket. Just go home. Forgot. Like a loaf of bread. Like the milk. Like the cat. Who forgets their father? Apparently, Simon does. Lovely. And here's the kicker. It wasn't even a mistake. Oh no. The little Shakespearean traitor had planned to leave me behind like last week's takeaway. And off they went, my entire family, skipping towards the gate with their leis and their smiles, while I was left clutching my suitcase like an abandoned Victorian orphan. 3 weeks later, when they finally slithered back from paradise, do you know what greeted them arrivals? Me. Not smiling, not holding a welcome home balloon, but standing next to a man in a suit. A man whose entire purpose was to ruin their day. Finally, something to look forward to. But let's rewind, shall we? Because the moment of betrayal deserves a bit of ceremony. Dad, I have some bad news, Simon said, his voice slicing through the airport chaos like he was announcing my terminal illness. My suitcase bumped against my shin, a sad little drum roll for impending doom. What kind of bad news? I asked, already feeling the icy dread of someone about to be mugged by their own DNA. And then, I forgot to buy your ticket. The words just hung there, like smoke. Like cheap aftershave. Around us, travelers babbled about beaches and cocktails, which suddenly sounded less like joy and more like mockery. You forgot. My voice came out about 3 sizes too small. Which is fair, considering I'd only handed him $20,000. Not a typo. Not a loan. Not imaginary. Actual money. Enough to buy an old hatchback and drive to the beach myself. Simon, bless him, gave me the look of a man who'd accidentally ordered a latte instead of a cappuccino. Mild inconvenience, at best. There was just so much to coordinate. Work's been crazy. Ah, yes, of course. Classic excuse. I was busy. Next time I'll try that with the taxman. Oh, terribly sorry I didn't pay, Mr. HMRC. Work's been mental. Can we just forget the 20 grand? The airline desk agent tapped away at her keyboard like this was all perfectly normal. She smiled, then stopped smiling, never a good sign. I don't see any reservation under your name, sir. Of course she didn't. Simon was now pacing by security like a man waiting for his mistress to text back. She checked again. Nothing. But guess whose name she did find? Simon Willis. Party of 4. Booked 6 weeks ago. 2 adults. 2 children. And this is my favorite bit, no dad. Apparently, when they said family holiday, they meant everyone but you, mate. And I just stood there, surrounded by holidaymakers, with the unshakable feeling that I'd been mugged without anyone even bothering to take my wallet. 6 weeks ago. That's when Simon had already decided I wasn't coming, booked everything, sealed the deal, tied it with a bow, and didn't bother to include me. 6 bloody weeks. The agent confirmed it with all the sympathy of someone about to put down a beloved pet. No, sir. Reservation unchanged since the original booking. Well, cheers for that. My legs wobbled. I gripped the counter like it was the last bar stool at closing time. Other airlines? I croaked. Anything to Honolulu. Today? Tomorrow? This decade. She typed, frowned, typed again. The face you see on doctors before they deliver its terminal. Mate speech. Convention season? I'm afraid. United's got a waiting list of 47. Alaska Airlines is full until next Tuesday. Next Tuesday. By then, my family would be halfway through a luau, dancing round a pig on a spit, probably telling the kids, remember, Grandpa's allergic to fun. There is one option, she whispered, like she was offering black market organs. Southwest. Red eye tonight. 2 stops. Arrives Thursday afternoon. Quite expensive. How expensive? £1, 800. I reached for my wallet, then stopped. Because in the distance, I could see Simon at the gate, probably texting Fern. Crisis averted. Dad's been successfully dumped. Pack the champagne. The agent's voice drifted through the fog in my skull. Sir, would you like me to hold the seat? But I was stuck on one hideous, clarifying truth. He knew. He knew all along. And then my phone buzzed. A text from Simon. Short. Brutal. Sorry, Dad. We'll call from hotel. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. The kind of message you send to your plumber after he's retired. Not your father, who just bankrolled your tropical jolly. The agent cleared her throat politely, like I was a dog refusing to leave the vet's office. Shall I hold the Southwest flight, sir? I slid the phone back into my pocket. No, don't bother. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about a forgotten ticket, poor planning, or Simon's Olympic-level selfishness. No, this was about identity. About the fact that my family had mentally rebranded me from Dad, the provider, to Dad, the disposable. And they'd assumed I'd just swallow it. Spoiler alert, I didn't. The departure board flickered. Hawaiian Flight 447 departed. Simon and his merry band of ingrates were already airborne, probably clinking plastic glasses and congratulating themselves for finally cutting the dead weight. I picked up my suitcase, walked out, and for the first time in hours, I didn't feel like collapsing. No, every step towards the exit felt like a rehearsal dinner for revenge. Outside, the California air slapped me awake. The taxi line was long, but good. It gave me time to think. Time for the rage to marinate properly, like a fine stew of betrayal. The driver popped the boot. Where to? Oakland. Montclair District. He glanced at me in the mirror as we merged into traffic. Rough day. Getting rougher by the minute. Family trouble? Something like that. He chuckled, the bitter, twice-divorced kind. Brother, I've got ex-wives who could write manuals on betrayal. Families, the one lot who know exactly where to stick the knife. Oh, spot on, taxi philosopher. Because that's exactly what it felt like. Sharp. Surgical. Right between the ribs. As we drove through Daly City, I replayed conversations like an old film reel. March, when I'd first pitched the Hawaii trip. Simon's immediate enthusiasm. Great idea. Dad, leave it all to me. April, sitting round Fern's dining table. Brochures spread like treasure maps. Pearl bouncing in her chair. Oh, Lee, you're so generous. Generous? No. Mugged. That's what I'd been. Enthusiastically mugged. And suddenly, all the little comments made sense. Fern suggesting I'd be more comfortable in another hotel. Pearl joking that older folks sometimes prefer quiet activities. Translation, you'll slow us down, old man. They'd been grooming me for exclusion the whole bloody time, conditioning me to accept scraps. And like an idiot, I smiled through it. You know what the worst part is? I muttered to the driver. What's that? They thought I'd just take it. Roll over. Go quietly. The Bay Bridge loomed ahead, cable slicing the sky. But I'm 68. Spent 43 years as an engineer. And if I think that means I've run out of fight, then my dear children are about to find out just how spectacularly wrong they are. I raised a son who apparently thinks I'm a complete idiot. And to be fair, up until now, I've done a pretty convincing impression. But here's the thing. I didn't survive nearly 7 decades on this miserable rock by letting people walk all over me. The taxi driver chuckled, eyes on the road. Now you're talking sense. My phone buzzed again. Another text. This time from Fern, my darling daughter-in-law, who has all the sincerity of a politician at election time. So sorry about the mix-up, Dad Willis. We'll bring you back something nice from Hawaii. Mix-up? Oh yes, I see. Just a harmless clerical error. Like forgetting to put sugar in your tea. Except instead of sugar, it was me. And instead of tea, it was a 20,000-pound holiday. Honestly, at this point, I wouldn't have been shocked if the something nice they planned to bring back was a curing and a restraining order. 6 weeks ago, I transferred Simon the money. He'd said, easier to book everything from one source, Dad. And like a trusting old fool, I believed him. Easier for him, apparently. Easier to shaft me while he pocketed the receipts. By the time we pulled into my driveway in the Oakland Hills, the hurt was still there, sharp, humiliating. But underneath it, something harder. Something beginning to boil, like a kettle that's been forgotten, and is now whistling with rage. Simon wanted to treat me like some doddering pensioner to be shuffled out of sight. Take my money, cut me from the cast list, and still have the gall to text me polite little take care notes. Well, if they wanted a fool, they'd pick the wrong one. That'll be $47.50, the driver said. I handed him $60. Keep the change. And thanks for the therapy session. He grinned. Whatever you're planning, I hope they deserve it. Oh mate, they do. They really do. Inside, the house looked exactly as I'd left it 3 hours earlier. Neat, quiet, expectant. Except I wasn't the same man who'd walked out. That man had been a generous old sap. The one walking back in was an ex-generous old sap, which is far more dangerous. First things first, cardigan and comfortable trousers. Simon always said they made me look like a retired professor. Well, tonight I was Professor Petty Revenge, and class was in session. I opened the drawer of Martha's old desk and pulled out the holiday folder, Hawaii 2025, written in my careful handwriting. Inside were 23 documents, each one a monument to my misplaced trust. Travel agency invoice, bank transfer receipt, hotel confirmation. And then I saw it. 7 guests, 10 nights. Ocean View Suites at the Grand Wea. The names, Simon, Fern, Pearl, Saul, Mia, Ethan, and Martha Willis. My dead wife. Dead 3 years, bless her. Apparently, she made the cut. I didn't. That was the moment my hand actually shook. They'd rather resurrect Martha than include me. Charming. I picked up the hotel brochure, glossy sunset photos, happy families splashing in turquoise water, grandparents surrounded by adoring grandkids. All the things we'd talked about in those family planning sessions. Lies, every single one of them. So I did what any sane, humiliated, cardigan-wearing man would do. I picked up the landline. Not the mobile, oh no. Something about this demanded gravitas. The click-clack weight of real plastic buttons, not the pathetic swipe of a touchscreen. Reservations, Grand Wea Resort. This is Co. How may I help you? Hello, Co. I'd like to cancel a reservation under the name Willis. She pulled it up. Yes, sir, I see it. 7 guests. 10 nights. Ocean View Suites. Are you sure? Our resort is beautiful this time of the year. Cancel everything. But sir, the cancellation fee. How much? $3, $200. I nearly laughed. Less than what Simon spends on artisanal coffee subscriptions. Perfect. Cancel it. Typing. The sound of a printer. Co. hesitated. Mr. Willis, may I ask what you'd like us to tell the party when they arrive tomorrow? Tell them the reservation was canceled by the primary booking party at exactly 6:47 p.m. Pacific Time. Silence. Then, yes, sir. Perfect indeed. Simon would know. He'd know exactly what time I pulled the trigger. No excuses, no accidents. Just deliberate, surgical retribution. I hung up and looked at the family photo, still sitting smugly on my desk. Last Christmas. All of them smiling, surrounded by gifts I bought, eating food I paid to cater. Looking at me like I was Father Bloody Christmas himself. Well, Father Christmas has retired. The generous old fool has left the building. For the first time in weeks, I slept like a baby. No anxiety about packing. No rehearsed daydreams about Pearl's face lighting up at the ocean. Just peace. Delicious, petty peace. And in the morning, as sunlight poured through the curtains, I didn't feel regret. I felt something far better. I felt ready. The old percolator bubbled away on the counter, doing its usual impression of a pensioner with indigestion. Same coffee smell Martha and I had shared for 40-odd years, except now it just mocked me with remember when life made sense undertones. My phone sat there charging, glowing smugly with 56 missed calls. All from the same Hawaiian number. Oh, Simon had been busy. Desperate even. I ignored it long enough to pour my coffee properly, because if you're going to confront betrayal, you may as well do it with caffeine and cream. Scrolling through the call log was like reading a tragic comedy in real time. 11:47 p.m. Dad, call me back. 11:52, urgent. 12:03, hotel says you canceled everything. and on until 5:15 a.m. Kids are crying. We have nowhere to go. It was basically a live performance of the decline of the House of Simon, starring my son as the panicked fraudster and me as the cruel, unhelpful villain. BAFTA-worthy, really. I carried my coffee to the armchair, settled in, and admired my neighbor walking his dog like nothing in the world was collapsing. Meanwhile, on a Hawaiian island, my family was reenacting Les Miserables in a hotel lobby. The voicemail came next. Simon's voice, urgent and nasal. Dad, this is cruel and unnecessary and completely unlike you. Pearl hasn't stopped crying. Fix this right now. Cruel and unnecessary? Fascinating word choice. Rather like leaving your father stranded at an airport after stealing 20 grand from him. Funny how perspective works. My coffee had never tasted so divine. Brazilian roast, with notes of schadenfreude. My finger hovered over the green call button. Simon wanted to talk? Oh, at long last, the prodigal son needed daddy. After 56 calls, I hit dial. He answered before the phone even rang. Dad. Finally. What the heck is going on? The hotel says you canceled the entire reservation. Well, hello, Simon. Lovely to hear from you. How's your exotic adventure going? Room service treating you well? Oh, wait. He ranted. Fern muttered about disaster in the background. One kid cried like a badly tuned violin. Music to my ears. Actually, son, I said, reaching for Martha's old notepad. I understand perfectly. When you left me at the airport yesterday, where exactly did you expect me to stay? The gift shop. Simon stumbled, voice cracking with the effort of finding an excuse. That was completely different. This is about innocent kids. Ah, yes, the children. The mythical trump card. Always rolled out when the adults have well and truly cocked it up. Were there innocent kids involved? I asked, when you deliberately excluded me after pocketing my 20,000 pounds. That's not the same, he snapped. I noted the time. 8:03 a.m. California. 5:03 a.m. Hawaii. Simon, panicking. Me, calmly documenting receipts. Then came Fern, shrieking in the background about credit cards. Brilliant. Apparently, they'd charged the entire holiday to plastic, fully expecting my money to magically cover it. Ah, financial planning at its finest. Rob dad blind, gamble with debt, and then feign shock when the house burns down. Stop being dramatic, Dad. This isn't about you anymore, Simon tried. On the contrary, I said, sipping my coffee like an aristocrat about to sign a death warrant. It became about me the moment you took my money and told me to sod off home. That's when he cracked. Fine. You want to play hardball? When I get back to California, you'll regret this. You think you can manipulate this family with money. Lovely. A threat on record. I jotted it down cheerfully. Old man, he called me next. Delightful. Nothing says respectful son like insulting the pensioner who bankrolled your entire fiasco. You're absolutely right about consequences, Simon, I told him. For instance, the consequence of betrayal is learning that the betrayed party now finds your misery delicious. He tried to pivot, soften his tone, plead his case. Maybe we handled things badly yesterday, Dad, but right now, can't you just call a hotel and... No. What do you mean, no? I mean the word no. Short, sharp, easy to spell. You should try it sometime. Like yesterday, when you suggested I simply go home instead of joining my own grandchildren's holiday. Silence. Just the faint sound of Pearl muttering that this was a disaster. She wasn't wrong. I leaned back in my chair, took another sip, and smiled. The coffee was still hot. My son's holiday, however, was stone cold dead. This is insane. You're acting vindictive. That was Simon's final protest before I hung up. Honestly, if I had a pound for every time my children accused me of acting out of character, I wouldn't even need my retirement fund. I put the phone down and enjoyed the rare silence. No shouting, no guilt trips, no think of the children. Just me, a living room, and a hummingbird outside Martha's feeder, pretending it was auditioning for Fast and Furious. Nectar Drift. I glanced at my notepad. Threats. Insults. Financial confessions. Zero accountability. Truly, a family legacy worth framing. My phone immediately rang again. Hawaii, of course. I turned it off. If my son wanted a helpline, he could ring the Samaritans. The words looked even uglier on paper. You're going to regret this, old man. Interesting choice. He could have gone with I'm sorry, or Dad, I was wrong, but no. He went with pantomime villain. Inspiring, really. I looked over at Martha's reading chair, sunlight spilling across those floral cushions she'd fought me over 30 years ago. At the time, I thought they were hideous. Now, they felt like relics from a world where people still had spines and basic human decency. I could almost hear her. Kindness is not weakness, Lee. Don't let people confuse the two. Well, Simon had confused it for about 20 years straight. University tuition? Paid. First flat? Co-signed. Mortgage? 3 times, like some sort of deranged monopoly banker. Vacations, medical bills, violin lessons, football kits, loans, translation. Donations with paperwork. £47,000 just last year. At this point, I wasn't a father. I was a one-man social services department. And the thanks I got? Abandoned at an airport like a lost umbrella. My office suddenly felt less like a room and more like a courtroom. Filing cabinet, evidence locker. Notepad, witness statement. And me? The judge, jury, and finally, the executioner. Behind Martha's emergency contacts, I found Bruce Harlan's card. Estate lawyer, professional problem solver. The man who'd helped me when she passed. Calm, steady, efficient. Exactly the sort of person you want when you're about to take a wrecking ball to your son's sense of entitlement. Simon thought this was temporary. That with the right cocktail of guilt and intimidation, I'd cave like I always had. But he was about to discover the fine print of life. Kindness has an expiry date. I dialed Bruce's office. The receptionist answered in that smooth, professional tone that says, "We charge £300 an hour to sound this pleasant. This is Lee Willis. I need an urgent consultation with Bruce about estate planning. Appointment booked. Tomorrow afternoon." Just like that, the game shifted. That night, I slept better than I had in months. No tossing, no turning, no imagining Pearl squealing at her first glimpse of the Hawaiian surf. Just deep, delicious sleep. San Francisco greeted me the next day with glass towers and polished marble lobbies. Bruce's office on the 15th floor reeked of mahogany, leather, and hourly billing rates. "Lee," Bruce said, rising with a handshake like a man who's never forgotten to send an invoice. I sat, laid out my documents like exhibits at trial. Bank statements, receipts, text messages, my scribbled notes from Simon's greatest hits. "You're going to regret this, old man. Actions have consequences." Bruce read them carefully, his brow tightening in that lawyerly way that translates to, "You're sitting on a gold mine of evidence." "How long has this financial dependency been going on?" he asked. 20 years. Minimum. I've got documentation going back to his first mortgage. Bruce nodded, tapped his pen against the pad. "Lee, this isn't just family drama. This looks like attempted financial coercion. In California, that's grounds for disinheritance, with legal protection against challenges." I smiled. Justice, not revenge. Martha would have approved. Simon had wanted to play hardball. Pity for him. I'd spent 4 decades negotiating with corporate sharks who ate people like him for breakfast. None of them made the same mistake twice. Simon was about to learn that neither would he. Meaning if I decided to rewrite my will, and oh, what a delicious thought, Bruce could make it watertight enough that Simon couldn't so much as sneeze on it without being told to sit down and shut up by a judge. The relief was physical, like finally dropping a sofa you've been pretending isn't that heavy while your back screams treason. "I want him completely excluded," I said, which felt less like estate planning and more like ordering pest control. Everything I'd worked for, every pound, every penny, every sleepless night, was going anywhere except to Simon. Charities, schools, foundations, basically anyone with a moral compass above exploit your father until he cracks. Bruce nodded like a priest hearing a particularly juicy confession and opened his laptop. Up came templates, clauses, footnotes, the holy scriptures of financial vengeance. For the next hour, we plotted like Bond villains, except instead of world domination, we were funding engineering scholarships and veteran services. Frankly, more useful. You've provided enough documentation to prove financial exploitation, Bruce said, scrolling through my bank statements like they were crime scene photos. Combined with the threatening messages, we have solid grounds for disinheritance. Lovely. My son, the kind of man you have to legally ban from your funeral buffet. How long will this take? I asked, bracing for bureaucracy. I can have documents ready by next week. Witnesses' notarization, maybe even a video recording of the signing for proof of mental competency. Whatever it takes, I said. Translation. If you need me to sign in blood while juggling chainsaws, fine. Just keep Simon's grubby hands out of my estate. Bruce leaned back, giving me that lawyerly look reserved for clients about to do something irreversible. Lee, this is permanent. Once executed, it will fundamentally change your family relationships. They change first, I said. I'm just updating the paperwork. He raised an eyebrow. And you're certain about this? No second thoughts about the grandchildren. Ah, the grandchildren. Sweet little Mia and Ethan. All wide eyes and birthday cakes I bloody paid for. And yet, what's the point of leaving them anything if Simon would just use it as a down payment on his next betrayal? Better they benefit from scholarships than from inheriting money he'd gamble away on his next half-witted scheme. Bruce nodded, apparently satisfied that I wasn't a complete lunatic. Then let's proceed. We shook hands, his grip professional yet oddly sympathetic, like he knew I was one emotional outburst away from throwing my family tree into a wood chipper. Walking back through the marble lobby, I felt lighter, not won the lottery lighter, but finally got rid of that one drawer full of tangled phone chargers lighter. The law was now my ally. Justice had been drafted in Times New Roman. The week that followed? Blissfully uneventful. I rediscovered hobbies I didn't even like, but suddenly cherished. Morning walks through Oakland, evenings with a book in Martha's chair, cooking meals for one without needing to text Simon about who was allergic to what. No phone calls about Pearl's dinner preferences, no emergency arthritis activities for Saul. Just me, peace, and the smug knowledge that legal doom was being typed up in Bruce's office. Friday afternoon, the phone rang. Bruce's office. Lee, the documents are ready. Can you come in Monday to sign? Absolutely, I said, which in my head translated to, yes, Bruce, let's make this betrayal official. Fetch the ceremonial pen. Monday arrived and I strode back into Bruce's office like a man walking into his own coronation. Except this coronation involved witnesses, a paralegal, a notary, and enough paperwork to choke a forest. Mrs. Chun adjusted her glasses. David the paralegal set up a video camera like we were about to film Who Wants to Disown a Millionaire. This is a formal will execution, Bruce said gravely. Everything must be witnessed and notarized. The new will sat before me. 23 pages of pure poetry. Page after page, excluding Simon with the precision of a surgeon amputating a gangrenous limb. Charitable trusts replacing entitled relatives. Bruce named executor with enough authority to keep Simon out even if he turned up dressed as a bailiff. Bruce read the key provisions aloud, his tone somewhere between courtroom drama and funeral hymn. The testator, Lee Willis, being of sound mind and clear judgment, hereby excludes his son, Simon Willis, from all inheritance due to demonstrated financial exploitation and threatening behavior. Music to my ears. Honestly, put it on vinyl and I'd play it on repeat. Charities lined up like grateful heirs. Oakland Children's Education Foundation, UC Berkeley Engineering, Veterans Programs, Senior Services. Organizations that would actually do something useful with my money instead of blowing it on dodgy, get-rich-quick schemes, or whatever Simon's latest fantasy was. Mrs. Chun peered over her glasses. Mr. Willis, do you understand these provisions completely? Yes. And you're executing this will freely and without coercion, completely freely. In fact, with great enthusiasm. David flicked on the camera. For the record, please state your name and today's date. Lee Willis, 25th of May, 2025. And yes, I'm doing this of my own free will. Emphasis on the will. My signature felt steady, deliberate, final. Mrs. Chun and David signed as witnesses, stamping this whole circus with the official mark of "Don't even bother, Simon." The notary pressed her seal into the paper, a small, satisfying crunch that sounded exactly like victory. Bruce handed me a sealed envelope. "The original remains in our vault. Keep one copy accessible and another in a safe deposit box." "When do you think they'll find out?" I asked. "That depends on when you choose to tell them." I tucked the envelope under my arm, its weight oddly reassuring. Like armor. Or perhaps like a loaded weapon, depending on your perspective. Either way, Simon would soon discover that actions have consequences, preferably over a very awkward family dinner. Bruce, ever the sage of understatement, had said, "Family meetings after a crisis reveal everyone's true priorities." Translation: prepare for screaming, gaslighting, and someone inevitably bringing up childhood trauma from 1987. Outside, San Francisco buzzed on with its usual indifference. Businessmen rushed about as though their emails were national security briefings. Tourists clutched maps upside down. Street performers shouted for attention. The whole city merrily carried on, blissfully unaware that my personal life had just been boiled down to, "Congratulations. Your son's been formally deleted." Driving home across the Bay Bridge, I caught Martha's favorite skyline view. Like a postcard. She'd have approved of today's little errand. Clean, legal, poetic justice. Simon had made his choice at the airport when he decided Dad was baggage. Now baggage was biting back. 2 weeks had passed since Bruce tucked my shiny new will into his vault. 2 weeks of me playing house with peace and quiet, while mentally rehearsing this exact moment like it was opening night at the theater. Now here we were at SFO arrivals, the stage set, the actors about to walk through those sliding doors under the sign that smugly read, "Nothing to declare." Oh, but we had something to declare. "Flight 441 from Honolulu has landed," Bruce murmured, consulting his phone like a general checking troop movements. He held the leather portfolio under his arm, its contents deadlier than a live grenade in a family reunion. The passengers trickled out first. Sunburnt families jangling with leis, couples clinging to duty-free, business travelers already chained back to their phones. And then my cast. Pearl appeared first, of course, chattering like a wind-up doll on double batteries. Still wearing a hat tagged with Hawaiian Airlines luggage stickers, because fashion. She was waving a Maui shopping bag, as if to prove she'd truly experienced Hawaii. Saul followed, wheeling suitcases with the weary expression of a man who'd spent 6 hours nodding politely at the same bloody story. Then came Fern and the kids, Mia bouncing in a grass skirt over her shorts, Ethan draped in plastic flowers, both scanning the crowd with that sugar-high excitement only children possess. For a split second, my heart melted. Then Simon arrived. My son. My Judas. Relaxed swagger. Hawaiian shirt hanging like he'd been cast as unpaid extra in a bad holiday advert. Checking his phone, probably plotting his next betrayal. And then Mia spotted me. "Grandpa." She broke away, ukulele bouncing like a cheap toy on its final string. Ethan followed, beaming. Their hug was pure, uncomplicated love. Small arms around my neck, proof that innocence hadn't yet been completely inherited. For a heartbeat, the weight of what I was about to do pressed down. Then I looked up, saw Simon's face, watched his holiday tan drain faster than a dodgy curry. He froze. His eyes flicked from me to Bruce, lawyer chic in a tailored suit, portfolio gleaming like the sword of Damocles. "Dad," Simon said, his voice thick with jet lag and dread. "What are you doing here?" "Welcoming you home," I replied smoothly, gently positioning the children beside me like pawns in a particularly messy chess game. "How was your vacation?" Fern appeared at his elbow, her expression shifting from "oh good, Dad's here" to "oh God, Dad's brought a lawyer." Pearl, bless her oblivious soul, prattled on. "Lee, what a surprise. Wait till you hear about the luau. The buffet was." "Pearl," Saul muttered, accountant instincts tingling. "Maybe we should." But Bruce was already stepping forward, professional as ever, voice carrying the weight of an executioner reading charges. "Mr. Simon Willis." Simon went white. Bruce extended the sealed manila envelope like he was serving divine judgment. Sir, this is a copy of your father's revised last will and testament, executed on May 25th, 2025. The airport noise dulled into static. Simon's trembling hands took the envelope, his holiday swagger collapsing into panic. Fern leaned closer, reading the return address, her face draining of color faster than his. Simon ripped it open, movements jerky, desperate. His eyes scanned line after line, and I watched his holiday mood evaporate in real time. Confusion, disbelief, and then horror. This can't be real, he whispered, as though the legal system was a casual prank. Fern, ever the diplomat, leaned in with a reasonable tone that screamed damage control. Lee, surely we can work this out. Think of the children. They're your grandchildren. I smiled, calm as a saint who's finally got the receipts. I did think about them. That's why I paid 20 grand for their Hawaiian vacation. Simon's head snapped up, eyes blazing. The fury of a man watching his meal ticket set itself on fire. You can't do this to us. I'm your son. Yes, I said, my voice razor sharp. The son who left me stranded at an airport, then threatened me when I dared to object. Congratulations, Simon. You've officially inherited nothing. Pearl, bless her oblivious little heart, finally noticed something was wrong. Took her long enough. She stopped mid-sentence, a miracle in itself, and asked, Lee, what's going on? Why does everyone look so upset? Sue, ever the diplomat, tried to shepherd her away. Pearl, maybe we should give them some privacy. But privacy was never Simon's style. Oh no. He wanted the full Broadway meltdown, starring himself center stage. This is impossible, he barked, loud enough for baggage claim to stop chewing their gum. You can't disinherit family. There are laws. And then Bruce, my lawyer, a man who probably sleeps in a three-piece suit, stepped in with the calm of someone who enjoys destroying people politely. Actually, Mr. Willis, California probate law fully supports your father's right to distribute his estate as he sees fit. The documentation is legally ironclad. Ironclad. Translation. Simon, you're screwed. Simon puffed up like a dying kettle. I'll contest it in court. Please do, I thought. It'd be the most entertainment I've had since cable telly stopped being free. Out loud, I said, please do. Bruce has prepared for that possibility. The video recording of my competency evaluation should be particularly compelling to any judge. Simon looked like he'd swallowed a wasp. Fern, meanwhile, was busy scanning the documents, probably doing silent maths in her head. The house, the investments, the everything. She looked like someone had just canceled Christmas. Bruce confirmed it all with the same tone you'd use to order a latte. Everything. The Oakland Children's Education Foundation and UC Berkeley Engineering Scholarship Fund are now the primary beneficiaries. Simon crumpled the papers in his fist, dramatic, like some low-budget soap opera, then immediately smoothed them back out. Because nothing screams authority like aggressively uncrumpling legal documents. This is insane, he hissed. You're throwing away your family over one stupid argument. One stupid argument. I nearly laughed. My voice stayed level. Martha's ghost must have been holding my tongue. Simon, you stole 20 grand from me, banned me from seeing my grandchildren, and threatened me when I objected. That's not an argument. That's betrayal. Try again. Just then, Lil Mia tugged on my jacket. Grandpa, why is Daddy yelling? And that right there, that nearly cracked me. Her tiny little face looking up, trying to decode why Daddy was behaving like a pound shop villain. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that have big consequences, I told her gently. Which is British for, your father is a greedy prat and has just tanked your inheritance faster than Liz Truss tanked the pound. Simon, of course, was now at full Shakespearean tragedy pitch. We'll get lawyers. We'll prove you were manipulated. That you're not thinking clearly. Bruce, bless him, didn't even flinch. Just handed over his business card like he was recommending a good dentist. I'd be happy to provide documentation of your father's complete mental competency to any attorney you hire. Fair warning, frivolous litigation can be expensive. At this point, the family was standing around their luggage like extras in a canceled sitcom. Pearl still hadn't worked out what the hell was happening. But Soul, clever man with an accounting brain, knew exactly what disaster smelled like. "Simon," he said, quiet but cutting. "Maybe you should have thought about consequences before you acted." Simon spun on him like a toddler denied an ice cream. "Don't lecture me. This affects all of us." "No," I said firmly, clearly deliciously. "This affects the people who betrayed my trust. Your children are innocent. That's why I've established scholarships that will help children like them for generations. Not just kids unlucky enough to share your last name." Bruce snapped his portfolio shut with a kind of finality that says, "And scene. Gentlemen, our business here is concluded." We walked out, leaving Simon's voice echoing down SFO like a bad karaoke act that just won't stop. Still negotiating, still begging, still refusing to grasp the simplest of truths. Sometimes consequences are permanent. The walk through those airport corridors felt surreal. 3 weeks ago, I dragged my suitcase here, broken and betrayed. Now I was leaving as a man who just turned the tables and nailed them down with superglue. Justice achieved, dignity reclaimed, and a lawyer who probably deserves a medal. In the car, Bruce finally broke the silence. "That went exactly as planned." "Better," I said. Simon showed his true character beautifully. No judge in the country will overturn the will after watching him melt down like a cheap candle. The drive home across the Bay Bridge was absurdly poetic. City lights bouncing off the water like Martha herself was nodding in approval. She always loved that view. "You know they'll try to contest it," Bruce said. "Let them," I replied. "They'll get the same answer from every lawyer you did." Ironclad. He dropped me at home. We shook hands like men in a gangster film who just buried a body. Except the only corpse here was Simon's dignity. "Thank you, Bruce," I said. "You made this possible." He shook his head. "You did the hard work, Lee. Standing up for yourself took real courage." Then he drove away, leaving me in the soft glow of my porch light. My house, the same as it had been that morning, yet somehow utterly transformed. Inside, the smell of polish and the tick of Martha's grandmother clock greeted me like old friends. I made scrambled eggs and toast. Simple. No Fern demanding organic ale. No Simon asking for a real meal. Just eggs, toast, a cup of tea, freedom on a plate. I sat in my armchair, tea in hand, garden in view. The photos on the mantel, Simon's wedding, the grandchildren's birthdays, were still there. Still family. But now, they didn't sting. They were just pictures. Memories. Not obligations. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a victim. Now, I was an unapologetic advocate. A man who finally stood up, demanded respect, and got it, with paperwork to prove it. And somewhere, if there's any justice left in the universe, Martha was laughing her head off. No doubt Simon was already blowing up my phone, convinced he could negotiate his way out of consequences. Because naturally, when you've been caught stealing, threatening, and generally behaving like a pound shop Bond villain, the best solution is to ring Dad and say, "Fancy chat?" But some lessons can only be learned the hard way. And by learned, I mean they'll never sink in, but at least it'll be funny watching him try. Tomorrow, I'd call the charities. Real, functioning, worthy organizations, not Simon's Holiday Fund, or Fern's designer handbag relief effort. The Oakland Children's Education Foundation, UC Berkeley Engineering School, Senior Services. People who actually know what stewardship means. My money would go to violin lessons for kids whose parents worked 3 jobs, instead of fueling Simon's latest attempt at recreating Succession in a budget Airbnb. It would pay for engineering textbooks for students who actually deserve them, instead of, say, a 5th plasma TV. It would provide meals and companionship for seniors abandoned by their families, which, let's face it, gave me a personal sense of poetic symmetry. In short, I'd be funding actual good in the world, instead of another Hawaiian trip where my invite got lost. How tragic. The sun dipped behind Oakland's hills, drenching my living room in amber and gold. Very cinematic. Meanwhile, somewhere across the bay, Simon's household was imploding. Pearl, confused as ever, possibly wondering if this all meant she'd have to downgrade her nail salon. Soul already running numbers in his head because accountants can't help themselves. Fern no doubt planning a PR campaign to rebrand screwing over dad as family miscommunication. And Simon? Oh, Simon would be learning that actions actually have consequences. Shocking, I know. He must have thought betrayal worked on a rewards card system. 10 betrayals, get a yacht free. I finished my tea as darkness crept over the neighborhood. Tomorrow would be chaos. Phone calls from relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years, suddenly remembering I existed. Legal letters from lawyers who billed £200 just for inhaling. And the endless paperwork of shifting accounts and investments. Bureaucratic fun, but at least mine. But tonight? Tonight was mine. My chair. My house. My peace. No passive-aggressive comments at the dinner table. No being treated like an unwanted wallet with legs. Just the quiet dignity of a man who'd finally remembered he had a spine. Martha would have been proud. Or at least laughing. Because nothing says karmic justice like your greedy son watching his inheritance get handed over to violin lessons and engineering textbooks. Justice served. Lessons well attempted. Future secured. And for once in my life, the word enough actually felt like enough. It was perfect. It was peaceful. And best of all, it was entirely gloriously mine. And if you enjoyed this tale of family betrayal, karma, and one very smug pensioner, you know the drill. Like the video, subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments which bit of Simon's meltdown was your favorite. Go on, don't be shy. I'll be here, enjoying my tea.